the runner-up, the next best player. If you ain't first, you're last. The second overall selection has always been a very interesting pick, as it's almost like leftovers. Because for the most part, every single draft in history has fallen under two scenarios. A, the first overall pick is the clear choice, and there are two, maybe three other possibilities for the second overall pick. Or B, the first overall pick isn't obvious, and there's a debate for number one between two players, and whoever doesn't go first overall usually goes second. But with that being said, more times than not, the second overall pick becomes a franchise player. In today's video, we're going to be doing a second overall pick tier list, so comment down below what your list would look like. And because I got so many comments roasting my mustache and tank top, well, I'm wearing it again, and you did this. This is all your fault. This and this is all your fault. And I also made some tier adjustments from last video because we weren't dealing with the same high caliber players, and so I removed top 10 in history. I made Hall of Fame the highest. I added Superstar. As some of you pointed out, it was a good middle ground between All-Star, Superstar, and then Hall of Fame, which I definitely agree. And like last video, I do take potential into consideration, but it's more so about what have you proved so far. And press subscribe for some more awesome art content. We are having an amazing week. Just in my last video, I talked about hitting 20K, and somehow we literally just passed 21K. It makes no sense, guys. You are just blowing my mind. You guys are truly changing my life, and the support is incredible. Let's get straight into this video. Okay, so where better to start than with the All-Star himself, Danny Heeley. So we'll start from the kind of 2000 and go up here. All right, so Danny Heeley, 50 and 07. All memes aside, I feel like Heeley doesn't get the proper recognition he deserves, you know, because of the memes. Because even though he trailed off very hard, he was a superstar for like 7 straight years. In his best season, he put up 50 goals, 105 points, and was a big piece on many Team Canada gold medals. And weirdly enough, I think if Heeley would have taken his game, you know, more seriously, his conditioning, and we didn't see monumental regression, I would consider him a lock for the Hall of Fame. You know, he dealt with a lot of injuries, you know, regression, and of course controversy, and this may be even a bit controversial to some of you guys, but you know, Heeley was a top 5 talent back in his heyday. And honestly, and you might disagree with this, I think Heeley goes superstar. You know, all memes aside, he was a great player. Unfortunately, sometimes the memes can hurt a player, sadly.
The only signs I pay attention to are dollar signs, you know, my fucking check and shit, you know, I'm a fucking all-star, so whatever. You know.
Jason Spezza, longtime duo to Danny Heeley, is also kind of in a similar situation. He was a big Team Canada player. He actually never won any hardware, NHL hardware at least, but he did have some dominant seasons with 90 points in 68 games being his best year. But that being said, Spezza was a great player. You know, he dealt with injuries which did hold him back, but I think All-Star is an obvious one. So we'll go All-Star. Lehtinen, drafted in a time period where there was a lot of goalies going very high in the draft, Lehtinen was supposed to be the next great goalie in the NHL, as he was a phenom in Liga and dominated the entire World Juniors as an underager. However, he never really met expectations. He wasn't a bust by any means, but he wasn't a consistent all-star in his career either. And I think Lehtinen is an obvious candidate for meh. He had some good seasons. For the most part, he was just okay, and he was a terrible playoff performer. So we will go meh. All right, Eric Staal. Staal was in the Triple Gold Club. You know, he won the Stanley Cup in 2006 and was a major piece, and he could have easily won the Conn Smythe. 100 points in his best season, and he has had about 10 dominant seasons. I could see Eric Staal potentially going to the Hall of Fame, not first ballot, but for the most part, I would say he's had a superstar career. Evgeny Malkin, and this one's pretty obvious, guys, Hall of Fame. Let's see, 3 Stanley Cups, 2 Art Ross, a Ted Lindsay, a Hart, Calder, Conn Smythe, 11 international tournament medals, 113 points in his best season, first ballot Hall of Fame, easy. Bobby Rhine, and this one's pretty obvious to me, which is above average. Because Bobby Rhine, of course, has had an amazing story. If you haven't seen The Secret Life of Bobby Rhine, go watch it. But Ryan never fully developed into an all-star. In 2011, he did break out with 71 points, which gave a lot of people hope, but he never came close to that number again and has been seeing some pretty constant regression. Jordan Staal, and again, this one seems a bit obvious to me, which is above average. Of course, Jordan Staal has been one of the better defensive forwards for basically his entire career, but the offense never really followed. He had 50 points in 62 games in his best season, he has won Stanley Cup, and is a great leader, but he never fully broke out into that all-star. JVR, and this one's an interesting one, because originally, and I don't know if everyone knows this, but the Flyers were supposed to get the first overall pick to draft Patty Kane, but the Hawks came out of nowhere. Batista bombed them as they went from number 5 to number 1. And so the Flyers missed out on one of the best American players in history. And he has been no slouch. In his best season, he put up 30 goals, 62 points, and has served as a top 6 power forward goal scoring winger. But to me, he's a pretty obvious candidate for above average. Drew Doughty, and this one's pretty simple to me, which is Hall of Fame. 2 Olympic gold medals, 2 Stanley Cups, a Norris. In his best season, he put up 60 points in 82 games and has been crowned one of the best 2 defenders of the 2010s. Victor Hedman. And similar to Doughty, Hedman has been a superstar. It took him a couple extra years to develop, but when he got there, he developed into a consistent top 5 defender in the entire NHL. 72 points in his best season, 1 Norris win, and I think Hedman is actually pretty close to the Hall of Fame. However, I do think there's a bit more to prove here, and so superstar makes the most sense to me. Tyler Seguin, and I'd put Seguin in All-Star. You know, Seguin's been that very consistent point per game scorer his entire career, but he never got to that next level. In his best season, he put up 84 points, and I think if he can have that season where he breaks that 90-100 point mark, I do project Seguin to get into that superstar category, but for now, All-Star makes the most sense for me. Gabriel Landeskog, and again, another obvious candidate for All-Star. I call the trophy, a great leader, and 75 points in his best season. Ryan Murray, and to me, Murray is a massive letdown, as Murray was projected to be a top pairing defender with great upside. Not to mention it wasn't going to be surprising if he went first overall. So combine that with the fact he's probably been the most injury prone player of the past decade, Murray has been a massive disappointment. Barkov, the most underrated player who isn't underrated anymore. Barkov has developed into a premier two-way center. In his best season, he put up 96 points, and in my opinion, the best years are still to come. So to me at least, superstar is an obvious choice. Sam Reinhart, above average. Sam has been a good player, but he's never reached that all-star level yet, with 65 points in his best season. Jack Eichel, and it took him a couple years, but this season he has proved a lot, as he had 78 points in 68 games, and there's still so much more to prove. And this might be optimistic, but I think one day Eichel can get to the Hall of Fame if he keeps progressing, and you know, maybe gets an actual team around him. And so to me at least, I think Jack Eichel goes superstar. Patrick Laine, the Billy Goat, one of the most controversial players in the entire NHL, but regardless, he's also one of the best shooters in the entire NHL. 44 goals, 70 points in his best season, and Laine is an obvious candidate for All-Star. He has superstar potential, but he's also been one of the most streaky players I've ever seen in my life. Nolan Patrick. And sadly, of course, Patrick has been dealing with a lot of migraine issues, which may end up ending his career. So hopefully he does get back. And I still think Patrick has some great upside. I can see him developing into a Sean Couturier, you know, that two-way player. But so far, I think Patrick goes massive letdown, as he's only put up 31 points in his best season. Andrey Tsvetkov, and Svech this season has exploded in development with 61 points in 68 games. And he has all the tools it takes to be a superstar. And again, I do take what they proved more so into consideration, but Svechnikov is literally 20 years old, and to me at least, he is a lock to being a superstar. Because not only is his skill through the roof, but he also plays a physical style and is fearless. I mean, he challenged Alex Ovechkin as a teenager to a fistfight, so plus 20 points for having balls made out of steel. And lastly, we have Kaapo Kakko. And Kakko at the midpoint of this season was analytically having the worst season in the entire NHL. Which honestly shocked me, as I saw Kakko as someone putting up at least 60 points in the rookie season. But with that, Kakko is still a potential star. You know, he put up 23 points this season, but he has a lot more to prove. And so just like Jack Hughes, I will put Kakko in meh. Because even though he was a massive disappointment this season, he gets points for his age and potential. But anyways guys, what would your second overall pick tier list look like? Comment down below. And we got a pretty interesting distribution here. Mostly superstars, we got some all-stars and above average, and no busts, weirdly enough. There's been more busts in the first overall pick tier list than the second, which is pretty interesting. But anyways guys, press subscribe for some more awesome content, giveaway coming soon, so follow me on Twitter down below. I hope everyone's doing well. See you guys later.